Well, hello everyone. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. Glad to have you, kind folks, community, and creatives, joining me today on our demi-daily deep dive into the RPG subjects we have. And today, and this entire week, we were talking about blood. And this time it's Third Pillar Thursday. Well, why Third Pillar Thursdays? Well, the third pillar of gaming, coined by most recently by 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, is exploration. So the first two pillars are combat and social interaction, and then we get into the third pillar, which is exploration, the environment, and that kind of thing in RPG. It's one of my favorite subjects, pretty much because I am a contributing writer for Critical Hit Publishing, and my baby, my brainchild, is the cinematic environs. Is all about the environment. So of course, Vince says, "Oh, for some reason I thought it was already Friday." You're not alone there, man. You're not alone. With you, I'm sure you already thought that, being a little bit sick, but yeah. Bruce says, "Good morning, DBJ and blood thralls." Yeah, absolutely. So today, because I am your self-appointed third pillarist. I haven't had anyone unseat me from my demonic and despotic rule of the third pillar. Vince says, "I was looking forward to Sci-Fi Friday." Hey, don't worry about it, man. Me too. Yeah, the dead man's like, wishful thinking. Yeah, we all have. It's like is it past hump day? Oh, this is the end of the week. Really great. So anyway, now we're going to talk about using blood in the environment. So of course we Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday we brought up a different number of subjects, but now we're going to use it in exploration, using it to flavor our setting and the kind of cool little tricks we can do, narrative things we can do, little gimmies to the player characters as to why bother even having it, and some of the side effects of having it too, just to make the world a little bit more dynamic. I feel like I'm sitting down shorter, so apologize for the camera there. Angle. There we go. Vince says, "Yeah, you were unthroned, master of the environment. All hail TBJ. Maybe may he reign the surroundings forever." Yes, I am that which brings sunshine and terror, snow and frostbite. Yeah, yeah. Prue says, "Blood is slippery." Yes, fuck. Just putting it out there. Yeah, you know what? Some of the coolest, if we look back at some of our greatest mass media, because I always bring it up: movies, TV shows, books, graphic novels, history, and all those kind of things. One thing often forgotten, and if you've ever seen, wow, I want to say it's the second Raid movie. Um, is Oh yeah, Vince says Bloody Snow, Trails of Blood. Is that you get a mass murderer killer out there in one of your horror or slasher flicks or something? Try standing on blood on tile floor, man. It is slippery. Weapons being coated in blood. The A very noir effect is having pristine white splattered with blood, especially in the snow. And blood is warm as well, so it leaves a noticeable trail through snow, especially if it's not a blizzard. And then tracking it down, blood coming from the walls. Yeah, blood. Bruce says blood running down walls always good for atmosphere, especially in like a horror type of movie. The Oh man, Vince, I made a ship that can shrink itself with Astracitus. Yeah. um, Fantastic Voyage. He's making a reference to my reference to Fantastic Voyage, the movie. But blood evidence also, and I don't mean just CSI kind of stuff like what kind of blood type is it? But it carries disease. it's also great evidence to let the PCs know what's coming up before them. So if they're fighting an enemy that's got like acidic blood, you can tell what's on the floor from uh, maybe it's killed 3 goblins or something in the dungeon, and their bodies are half decomposed, half boiling in acid or something like that. And of course, they take a look, and that might be evidence that there's a black dragon or some such in or something carrying a ooze inside of it. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Vince says, oh yeah, Blades, the Blades movie, the first Blade movie, The Bloodbath. Yeah, yeah, I love that movie too, Prue. And vampires in that was a great environment thing for using vampires and blood. Like, why wouldn't they, especially if they're wild and crazy and immortal and out of their minds? Like, they're literally having a rave in a slaughterhouse with blood pouring through the sprinkler systems and stuff. It's pretty nasty, but it's also cool too, right? Yeah, Vince is coming back to it constantly because it's a great movie, right? And so there's plenty we can do with blood. And I mean, if we want to add to that eviscera thereof, blood and organs and piles of dead bodies and things like that. Vince says it is a total waste of blood. The human equivalent would be spraying champagne all over. I don't know if it was the fact that they were trying to drink it more or less, or a modern day ritualism to hype themselves up, to getting the blood frenzy going so they could take off this human. Although you would think in that movie that they would have more than one human being, brought to that party, right? Like, there's a bunch of pretty good looking vampires there. I think they could have gotten themselves a half dozen or more human beings that they could have all shared if they were to be fair about it. I don't know. I think they were being a little bit disingenuous with that. I think as vampires, I mean, somebody else dropped the ball and just didn't bring party favors. Um, Vince says, well, I can't imagine all the vampires licking the floor. Well, then if they're licking the floor, I think they might be a little too far gone. It's like the difference between, like, taking a puff of smoking weed and like being a heroin addict. Like one is cool, the other one is like, maybe you're a little too far gone. There is some social there are some social ramifications to being a vampire. We should all know this. We know, we're on the same page with this. Dead Man in Storyteller says everyone just carries a dead champagne glass. Yeah, they can go to the store and get themselves a Yeti, one of those double sealed aluminum coolers, and just hold it up, just carry it in their back pocket or whatever. And whenever blood pours out of the sky, they just collect what they can, hold it for later, maybe for an after party, maybe. Bruce says, I always thought they did really well staying on their feet in that scene. Could have been a whole other type of movie. Do slip, boom, and everybody just fall. We don't know in some of the outtakes, man. That could have been, they might have wanted to do that scene and not predicted how bad it could get. Because if you take a look at some of the scenes in the background, there are people there who like can't see and they're trying to breathe. I remember there was one girl trying to like hold her nose because there's probably red food coloring water like flowing up in her nose and stuff like that. Prue says the Benny Hill theme intensifies. Vince Shire says, but well, how about inserting blood pools in the environment when fighting blood buffed enemies? You know what? Thank you for going there, because we needed to go there. Vince says, I'm pretty sure they just used colored water for that scene. Yeah. Oh, I'm sure it wasn't real blood. It's just the way it was filmed. You slow the camera down, you do some camera tricks, it looks thicker. But yeah, blood pools are an absolute possibility. I mean, you could have absolute, like, if they don't necessarily need to be vampires, right? There's plenty of monsters you can use that that feed off of or drain blood. And could you imagine meeting up against vampires, and then there's like a darkened room, and as the light goes around the room, there are like half conscious human beings with their throats slit dangling from the ceilings. And when the PCs start fighting some of the enemies, um one group fights the enemies while the injured group goes and like jumps up into the ceiling or climbs up the walls or jumps into the blood pools to drink or absorb the blood into their bodies to be healed to come back after them again. I mean, why the hell not, right? um yeah. Oh, Live and Let Dice. Hey, Rickard says another classic is statues painting or crying blood. That is a very you often see that in relationship to um, religious themes. Not necessarily it has to be religious, but you often see like the white or ivory styled statues that are crying blood, and it could be evidence of the players not performing something, or it could be like a waking nightmare where a player sees that and sees a statue of a woman crying, you know what I mean, or a statue of a warrior starting to bleed from their artificial wounds because it's just a statue in the park. And why not use that as a way to tell a story, whether there is it's a foreshadow of something to come or something horrible in a PC's past or something or whatnot. Yeah. Live and Let Dice. Jeez. First of all, long time no here, but thank you for joining us. Live and Let Dice says blood oaths are always fun, and blood as a component for magic is always cool. Yeah, we brought that up, man, earlier in the week, and why the hell not use that? I mean, it's a trope, but it's a trope because it's classic. It is, what's the way to say, it's easy to sell to your players as a thing. Blood can be traced, it can be smelled. So if you have like, whether the PCs have a hunting dog or the enemies have like hunting dogs or cats or some other creature, they can smell the blood and then track them through the dungeon from their wounds or from the blood-covered PCs after having slain like 5 rooms of creatures. Now they're just trailing blood everywhere they go. Or the PC that's stuffing dead bodies into their like portable hole or a bag of holding or something like that. It can sniff it coming out of there. Vincent says, are having an altar covered in blood, collecting the blood through small canals. Yeah, and if you brought up Casino Royale, the bad guy would cry blood. His eye had an injury, and he carried a tissue around because he used to cry blood. And what a great religious symbolism. Someone remind me what it's called. The person who drains blood from the locations where Jesus was crucified, and people that go through that. It's called something. I apologize for not knowing what it's called, but yeah. Mythos, what's going on? Yeah, sent you some pics. This should be going out today. Prue says we can also add also deck out part of a dungeon with blood-related traps. Or Mythos says, or blood being used to summon a demon or a daemon. I guess I think it's just still simply pronounced demon. But yeah, Live and Let Dice says, yeah, I'm usually unable to join because I have a new job. That's physically intense, and I work early to late. Long time no see. Oh, no apologies. You're always welcome. So not a big deal. Yeah, Stigmata. Thank you very much there. Always with the knowledge here. But yeah, the Stigmata, where the person's hands, you usually see the person's hands will start to bleed. You often don't see the feet unless they're, of course, stylistically they're laying in bed and they feel it. But the bloodletting, the Stigmata, is a evidence, especially if you're doing like a modern day Cthulhu, well, not modern day. If you're doing a Cthulhu styled adventure and you really want to make it, bring some realism into it, and maybe even bring some of the darker themes inside of religion, that is a thing to do. But in your world, there's nothing stopping you to have that in your world, where there could have been a paladin that was there could have been a paladin who was brought before the public, and was honorable and saved many people's lives, but through the machinations of an evil emperor or something like that, had his throat slit in a public square and then enslaved everyone from then on. And then 3 generations later, this dictator still exists and the people have lived under their evil thumb. And what if, this is dark and strange, but what if people who are clerics or this paladin have been ascended to sainthood or divinity or something, that they awaken with the stigmata of their throat being slit. It's like the blood just seems to pour from their neck, and it game wise, they don't get hurt or anything, but it could be possible that's evidence of like, oh, you have the calling too. Maybe you should join the paladin hood or something like that. Pretty nasty, but possible as well. And of course, we got blood magic that we talked about yesterday and things like that. No. That's actually the way to spell. You're not, whatever. You're fine. Vince says there are some RPGs where stigmata are a character flaw, and why not? I mean, there could be in a vampire game a vampire that came from a religious background could have that as a limitation, where when they come near holy locations, especially when related to if they come from like a fairly Christian background, could be a thing. Or what if they don't come from a Christian background and they start feeling the stigmata when they come near a holy site? That would be kind of cool too. A great storytelling thing. Really, Kitty? Really? Thank you, but no thank you. Oh, and Undo, hey, what's going on there? Yeah, so but essentially, paladins of the order wear red scarves as a symbol. That is cool. That's what you're talking about. That is sweet. I mean, see, right now, man, we are absolutely world building and just coming up with things on the fly, just using the environment, things that are around us, and then coming up with these natural orders. I mean, even if you had a group that was yeah, Mythos says keep it PG. We didn't go PG yesterday, so it's all right. But we're adults here. We're all one and the same as long as you keep it into a frat and sorority. Keep out of the frat and sorority humor. We're pretty cool. But that's the thing, though, right? You could have an order of magi or clerics or whatever, warlocks or something, that wear red gloves or red scarves to represent the passing of someone else. But along with going back to the exploration part of it, it could be that, for example, Vince mentioned blood pools or pools of blood that could symbolize. I mean, if you have a pool of blood, where's it coming from? So that could be coming from prisoners that have been killed, and the PCs are like, horrified by it, or might want to use the power from it. There's also the idea of collecting the blood from their enemies. So a mage could get the blood from a giant and then use that blood to, use an enlarged spell or strength increasing spell or something like that. Blood of a troll might be used for healing spells and whatnot. So if you wanted to add that into your game, collecting the players who collect the components most related to a spell type of ability might get benefits for that, or that might even be a limitation or something in your setting. Live and Let Dice says maybe magic or certain martial disciplines prevents or inhibits bleeding for warriors, and they recognize rank by how little they bleed in combat, which makes a lot of sense, right? It narratively, healing, we all have our complaints about certain role-playing games. The world's most popular role-playing game has a lot of healing in it, and then we kind of go, we shrug our shoulders, or we grunt, and we're just like, oh, the healing is stupid. But honestly, in most mass media, we actually see that, right? But hero gets shot in the shoulder, hero gets stabbed through the gut, hero holds their hand against a wound and it stops bleeding and they can still fight. Like, what? But that is a thing too, right? The monk that gets shot with 3 arrows and sliced across the chest takes a deep breath and then keeps fighting and isn't bleeding anymore, people might be, looking at each other like, I think he's like a 12th level monk, or what the hell's going on here, right? You know what I mean? Like that could be a thing. And the idea of the meditative state to prevent yourself from being injured. There was in the comic books in Daredevil, there was the Hand, and there was a person named Stone. And as long as Stone knew an attack was coming, he would get attacked but wouldn't feel the pain and wouldn't bleed. Right, that kind of thing. Oh man, going back into the chat. Side stalkers, and Mythos says, although not blood in Rifts, there are side stalkers, which are energy vampires. And right, blood isn't necessarily the only thing that can feed the bad guys, right? That it's we brought up feces, blood, semen, vomit, memories, brain matter, the heart itself. Those kind of things. So yeah, emotions, those are all things that could be, that are, blood might be the evidence of doing it, but they might be going after something far more insidious. Especially, we even brought up the fact that you don't have to really be bitten, but could you imagine the blood being drained out of you? And that could be a descriptive way of describing a spell. Like, you don't just get blasted by an eldritch blast. What actually happens is the blood comes out of your pores and your eyes and your wounds into that person or something. Or if there's a spell that causes damage to you and heals you, causes damage to a target and heals the person casting it. That's the thing. Okay, so multi-part thing here. Rickard says riffing on the nightmare part. So it's part one, you enter after NPC, and as you catch up, you notice your skin softly reflecting the light. As you turn them around, you see they have turned into a porcelain statue. Part two, slowly they mechanically tilt their head, looking at you, opening their mouth, but no sounds escape. The black void that has replaced their mouth. And then part three, as they stare at you, sending a shiver down your spine, you notice they are weeping blood. As they open their mouth again to scream, you wake up as NPC is shaking you awake. And what that is, to me, that is a great, it is a great and dynamic world building thing. It is like, it's the nightmare that wakes you up with cold shivers, and you have the cold sweat down your chest and your armpits, and you don't know what it means, but it may lead to a clue in the story. And then if you actually see that in person, if you see that statue later on, it's that fear that runs down your spine. I love it. I love it a lot. Great thing. Anybody that sees this video, sorry, Rickard, they got to steal that because I am. Ooh, Vince is talking about just burn the moon with a hot gun. Ooh, wow. Mythos, Dex monks are the best. Your pocket GM mentions that healing is really just forced downtime. You think about it. You can't adventure if you're dead. Is it? Oh, DPJ, don't forget the placenta. Oh, how could I forget the placenta? Yeah. Yeah. There's because we talked about, man, we brought up menstruation and placenta. I mean, we could even talk about spitting up blood if you have like lung damage, or even stomach problems, ulcers, stomach ulcers, things like that. But unfortunately, all of that is evidence of something. Which could be pretty nasty. Imagine a dark hag that gives birth every couple of days to these monstrous creatures, and you see the residue of her giving birth to the trolls and troglodytes and oozes and nasty things in the swamp, and there's like placental residue everywhere and stuff. That could be pretty nasty and pretty sweet too. Yeah, Mythos agrees. Damn, Rickard, that's great. I love it too. I absolutely love it. Rickard says, take the PC aside and do it away from the group, and that PC will be super paranoid. Yeah, I love that idea of like, it's like you're seeding them with this information, but it's also character building, because how they react to it is super impressive, because it'll reflect on them in a meta game kind of sense. Like me as a player, I would be paranoid, and then playing that through my character also would have an effect, right? Because the character might be like, I'm super tough, I'm not affected by anything, but the players is like, holy shit, what the hell's gonna happen, man? Yeah. Nose bleeding. Yep. Um, uh, Vincent says classic boner substitute in anime. Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, the classic nosebleed. You know, a lot of that's a common thing too. Person uses psi powers, their nosebleeds, right? Person receives a dark calling or a vision, or they sense evil somewhere, or many people die and they sense the psychic scream and their nosebleeds. That's a thing too. Living Let Dice says monsters that are blood themed are terrifying to think about. A mage that can summon swarms of ticks, or an evil druid controlling a school of bloodthirsty sharks. Absolutely, and we tend to we overlook nature, but nature's pretty horrible when it comes to blood drinking, right? Like you're mentioning ticks. Man, make them the size of your fist or bigger, like the size of dogs or something. Druids, we think of druids as being these peaceful. The classic druid is like dressed in green, and they're living in the woods, and they're darn near smoking weed and whatnot, right? But there's a lot of blood drinking things out there that are pretty horrible, as well as the fear of fighting creatures that carry bloodborne pathogens as well. Those kind of things are nasty too. Pocket G, your Pocket GM says, right now I'm not doing. Right now I'm experiencing. Experiencing the nature of snot and mucus firsthand. Miasma theory, kids, it's real. Yeah. Oh. but I hear you, man. Yeah, it's pretty nasty. Mythos says using descriptive words based on senses is important. We tend to forget the sense of smell, hearing, of course, even what you touch. Let me bring up something that's often not brought up, but it is the idea that dark vision in Dungeons and Dragons doesn't let you see in color. So if you see a pool of something in front of you, it could be water, blood, acid, a living ooze, you don't know. So yes, that is a thing. It is black and white. So you might have to smell it or touch it or taste it, and and live with the horrors thereof. Rickard says that's why I love the metagaming aspect of the game. You can play the players to get the right mood in the game rather than the PC. I can't agree with you more. The role playing game Dread is a perfect example of that. I have the game there by him. Anyway, Dread uses a Jenga tower, stacking tower, and the dread is when you try to perform something, you pull a brick or two, or whatever action you're trying to take. And so the metagaming part is, as a player, you're nervous about something happening because you know there's going to be downfall of your player character, because eventually someone's going to die. Right, you're going to fail. There's just no way about it. You're just waiting till it happens. Well, Professor Dogo says, "Yeah, it's great." Oh man, you're absolutely right. Going back into the go to the chat. Fat Ninja, what's going on there, man? Your Pocket GM says, not just nosebleeds, also think of cerebrum fluid, yellow, oily, clear substance coming out of your ears, salty tears welling up in your eyes, bitter green bile in the back of your throat. Yum. Yum, but descriptive and endemic of what may happen. For example, if there could be a sorceress order that when they sense something, they throw up, right? That just could be a thing. So when players see the throw up of the sorcerer's order, they may go, oh, there's evil around, because I know that in this sorcerer's order, they get stomach cramps and they throw up, right? It's the foreshadow of things to come without just surprising your PCs. Or it could be the sensing the gargoyles or sensing the doppelgangers in the group. You know what I mean? That's a possibility as well. Damn, we got 11 people up here taking part in. Great to have you guys here. Your pocket GM says blisters under the skin, burst in a symbium fluid or blood from an interior bruise, or pus from an infection, or a scab from an old wound, a swarm of maggots. Oh man, you're going so dark, and I love it. The one thing we could also do, I mentioned this before, but BFF monsters, right? So instead of just saying, "Oh, you're attacked by zombies," you could say you're attacked by zombies, but you could add to them, like you guys are talking about, diseases, the maggots, leeches, rot grubs, oozes inside of them, poison snakes inside of the bodies. Like it's not just the zombies, but it's being bitten by them. That's the fear. What's the movie? 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later. It's the blood. They were blood rage zombies, where it's not just fighting them, but the fear of actually swallowing or having. I think one of the characters in the movie, a drop of blood fell in their eye and turned them. So it's like, whoa! I don't just want to kill them. I don't even want to be bitten by them, or you got the zombie and their organs spill out on the floor, and then all of a sudden there's like acid or some kind of nasty plague or something that can get on your skin. And the classic, you always have to have that one person, maybe an NPC, gets infected, but they hide it from everybody else. Like, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. And they're covering over the wounds because they're like pus filled. Or even the player characters that don't worry about cleaning their wounds, but later on those pus-filled wounds start to burst open, and a swarm of some kind of creature comes out later on when they get back to the city. It's pretty nasty. Bruce says, love the dread mechanic. I'm going to incorporate that in my game at some point. Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. And welcome Professor Drogo, or Professor Dogo. Glad to have you here. Your pocket GM says, in previous editions, if you cast the detect spells and the source is stronger than your hit dice, like +6 or higher, you become stunned or blinded. This could easily be your body failing to cope. If I'm not mistaken, I'm not going to look this up. Is that does that still exist in 5th edition? I know, like in 3.5, they had that. Like if you detected evil or detected a creature like a fiend or something like that was more powerful than you, that you got stunned because of it. And that is a thing where you might vomit, have stomach cramps, like you said, brain fluid coming out of your ears. The brain fluid coming out of the ears thing could also be psychic attacks. Your mind flayers, your illithids are a big thing, sending out psychic attacks. And that could be, oh, those people were killed. They don't have any wounds on them. Someone turns their body, uses a medicine check, or, the adventurers turn them over and like, look at their ears, and it's brain fluid coming out of their ears. And you're like, ooh, they were attacked by something that casts like psychic powers or something. Again, foreshadowing, right? Professor Drogo says, air quotes, the zombie throws leeches at you. The leeches are also poisoned. Yeah. That's stacking an enemy. But why not? The whole point of the game is to create conflict and obstacles and more problems to deal with. So why not have that? You can have, why not have a giant Tarrasque that's killed, and when you slice open the stomach, the creature is so big that the organs and the fluid inside of it is a hazard in and above itself. You know what I mean? It could be a giant black ooze or gray ooze or black pudding or gelatinous, creature or something inside of it. And that's how it digests all the people it eats and that kind of thing. So yeah. Dead Man, a Storyteller says, Warhammer 40K has Nurgle, who is the chaos god of disease, which is another thing too. Could you imagine a cult, a religious cult that comes into a town, and they're wearing white robes and they seem very peaceful, and then all of a sudden they open their robes, they're standing there naked in a giant plaza, and they pull out knives, or you see them crumple to the ground in pain or something. They open up their mouths, or their stomachs start to churn, and they take a knife and they split their belly open and just spill out this nasty acid or ooze or something that starts to grow and infect everybody in the plaza or something. And the PCs are right in the middle of it, and all of the crowd starts transforming or being consumed by it or whatever, and they're in the middle of it. That would be a great thing too. And of course, the people as part of the cult are, they're happy to be there, right? I mean, it's a great way to insert some of these nasty things in like a city setting as well. But absolutely, your Pocket GM says it doesn't still exist in 5th edition, but the spell specific to a divine word still exists. Thank you. He's also said, I guess magic is sort of like radiation in general. Analogies to heat, light, microwaves, frigid winds, frostbite. I imagine the way to know an item is magical is that it might tingle to the touch. Yeah, absolutely. And depending on your setting, who knows, right? If magic comes from an insidious source, that all magic comes from some, like the gods were killed and the evil fiends or something killed them all. So when using magic, it has like an insidious part to it. You could have more of the darker elements come about, the stomach cramps, the vomiting, the blood out of the nose and eyes and things like that. That could be a thing. Hell, even druidic wild shape doesn't necessarily have to be looking nice. It could be, you could transform into a creature by shedding your skin and literally peeling the skin back and flesh off of your face to transform into something, or using a spell that like alter self might not be the cool, like, I'm just going to be a shapeshifter and do it cool. I mean, it could be pretty bloody. Maybe you leave your bloody skin behind every time you transform into something else, right? Setting wise, if everyone agrees that that's part of the setting and make it dark and insidious, that'd be awesome. I would love to play a character that leaves their bloody skin behind all the time, and guards find the bloody skin and they're like blowing their whistles or shaking their bells, and they're just like, looking for this insidious creature that's around, and it could be the PC themselves. Prue says animals carrying blood diseases among humanoids is nice. I just read Clocktar War by T. Kingfisher, and some animals are suspected of carrying a deadly sickness and are so treated dreadfully. You know what? Well, unfortunately, it's a real thing that animals can carry sicknesses. Rats, beef, cows, pork from pigs and things of that nature. So why not have that? Goats is another thing in the world, maybe camels or whatever. So you could have that be a real thing where animals are being infected by some kind of insidious disease, and that disease is spreading to the population. And the disease doesn't have to be mundane like the flu or tuberculosis or I'm snatching diseases out of my ass right now, but it could be something far more insidious. People transforming into lycanthropes, into trolls, into monstrous beasts that you pull out, things that you haven't seen in the book in a while, like Bahirs or Remorazes or basilisks or whatever. You could pull something out of there, and people are transforming into them in the city as victims of it, right? And then maybe some people want to be transformed after a certain part. If they're bitten by a snake and they become a naga, well, after a while they're just like, don't cure me. This is great. Foolish Kiwi says, I always treated mana as leftover radiation from the creation of the universe. Thus, the reason sentient beings can cast with it, being products of nature. This is why constructs cannot cast, etc. Perfect, right? That as long, if I'm a player in your game and you tell me that, I'm all in, right? That makes perfect sense. If in another setting it's from demons or it's literally mana in the world is the blood of the gods that were slain from before. Or if you have a table that whenever you cast a spell, if you roll too low in your spell casting, some dark effect happens to you. Why the hell not, right? Miso says, or have a corrupt police force trying to pin a tract on a good vampire using a 2-pronged rod on victims' necks. Oh, you mean like a corrupt police force might be trying to pin like brutal attacks on someone or something, especially like in Rifts, right? You have those cities and everyone just assumes everyone else is a DB, dimensional being. outside and DBs are nasty. I mean, sure, there could be a brutal attack by a regular human being, and they blame it on something else, some other outside force, just to garner sympathy for themselves and start selling hate. I mean, that's the thing. Dante says and I love the Dante unknown. But anyway, Dante says detecting magic in Eberron was always risky. A nosebleed or vomiting were occasional effects I used to keep the players entertained, and it became a sub mechanic. Like vomit was a reaction to necro. Yeah, exactly, right. It is. And thanks, Mythos. Yeah, like there is a thing where you can use that as like you don't necessarily have to have that be a mechanical effect. Mechanical meaning like adding advantage or disadvantage or some kind of bonus or penalty or something. But I absolutely think you can use it to flavor the setting, especially if that Medusa with her trained I don't know, pet, whatever, displacer beast smells what the players have left as evidence and then starts tracking the PCs down. And whenever they see this Medusa with her, shaded hood over her face and her pet displacer beast on the ridge, always going after them, maybe they realize that the blood mage in the group is kind of like leaving a lot of evidence and whatnot. But we can go even deeper into the environment as well, as far as like the scent of decomposing bodies, piles of bodies and battle and stuff. Even the idea of maybe the PCs have to they go into the underworld or the nether regions of demons or whatever, and there are rivers that are literally rivers of blood, or they go into the abyss, and the abyss is really a living creature, alive or dead, and so the rivers of blood are literally part of the creature's blood flow or something, and the PCs have to dive in and out of the blood. I mean, can you imagine your armored silver armored paladin wanting to take a deep dive into a blood-filled river to get to the other side, not being able to see through the blood? Because remember, dark vision isn't X-ray vision, right? It's not thermal vision, or at least in 5th edition, thermal vision doesn't exist in the same way. So yeah, you can't see through blood, but if something rubs against your leg, it's like, what the hell is that? And of course, after you do that, like you're just going to be soaked with it, right? It's pretty nasty. Foolish Kiwi sees maybe for your boat to float upon the river, your blood must be added. Ooh, oh, so someone has to like cut their hand open or something, where everyone has to give of their blood to appease whatever curse or promise or whatever is in the river. So everyone must give of their blood to cross the river, and if they don't, they get attacked by it, or attacked by whatever is in it or something. That could be a thing. But also there may even be there could even be blood related creatures that once they get a taste of you, like they latch on, like they just don't leave you alone. Everywhere you go, they're waiting at your door. They're on the ridge. They're following you in shadows. They're crawling across rooftops. Every time you sleep, you see them as shadows. At the behind a tent, you make your Liamon's tiny hut, and all you do is you just see them crowding around the edges of the Liamon's tiny hut, waiting for it to collapse after a day of taking a nice little nap. And there's just hundreds of them around you. That'd be pretty nasty as well. Mythos says, or have a prisoner exchange to rescue a loved one or a party member NPC, only to have the person they are exchanging to die, like DS9, the Ferengi rescuing Moog or Moj. That is a trope, and I've seen that before, where someone, so you have a prisoner exchange, you go to rescue the princess, or there's an important scientist you need to rescue, or there's a sage that's imprisoned inside of a tower, and you go to rescue them, and you bring them back to society, or you bring them with you, and you realize that they've been wounded or infected or injected with something, or they have some kind of they're marked some kind of way, and eventually they're going to transform, their stomach's going to explode, they're going to vomit up something pretty nasty inside of them. A potion of black pudding is pretty nasty to drink, right? That could be Moogie, maybe that's the thing. Yeah. Prue says, the mimic boat. It's been too long since we had a surprise mimic. It has been too long since we had a surprise mimic come in. We've had a couple of squirrels, not too many mimics join in the group, but yeah, absolutely. Oh man. Yeah, blood. Full excuses. Blood mimic. Mimic blood. Surprise is actually 2d20 acid. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the idea of playing with blood. I mean, we're having a lot of fun with it because it's cool, and it's hell. We've hit the 45-minute mark, and we're still not done, right? So you got plenty of things to steal in your so-called classic dungeon instead of kill the goblins, go to the next room, and ignore everything that happened last time. I mean, it could be the innocents are like, please save us, and the PCs are like, please get away from me because I don't want your stomach exploding all over my body, right? It's the can you cast remove curse or remove or cure disease fast enough for the thousands of refugees that are running that have been infected by something, right? Living Dice said blood could be used as a warding effect, like nothing can pass a barrier. Yep, if it doesn't bleed. This would be a creepy way for a place to be hallowed against undead, right? You could have a cleric in this world. The turn undead ability, the channel ability to repel dead might be the slicing of the palm and spilling blood around the PCs. It's the protection against good and evil dome, barrier, a pentagram or something. And it could be blood that's dripped around in a circle, either to keep something inside of the circle or to keep you inside and keep everything outside. Why the hell not? And then who's to say the evil Lich doesn't come by and place their finger on the dried blood of the PCs and is like, just touches it or swipes their finger through it and is like, yeah, I know who you are. I know who taught you this magic and I will come after you or something like that. I mean, imagine a story like that. Or the other way around, the PCs they go into the wizard's tower and the PC can, smell maybe there's a druid that can smell the blood. There's a ranger that has they're familiar with them. They're wolf that can track down the Lich that casts these blood rituals or something. The cleric that wipes their finger through it and understands what it means, or their religious order allows them to track down the evil people that use these blood rituals. Right? I mean, that could be a thing as well. Prue says, by the way, love Sturges so much. I know a lot of people think they're boring, but I think they're the nastiest thing ever, and I love them. Sounds like you're embracing the Sturges, but they're pretty nasty, and of course, like they're basically your giant bat-winged mosquito, nasty disease-carrying things that just love to stick their proboscis into the skin and suck you dry little by little. Yeah, absolutely. Pretty nasty, but I mean, I love rot grubs. I mean, have somebody having to cut off their arm to keep the rot grubs from crawling up their arm into their heart. I mean, we underutilize some of these nasty things, and there's a reason why they exist. They don't exist in a vacuum. Ravens and vultures don't exist in a vacuum. They exist as scavengers. So having scavenger creatures follow all of the dead things that the PCs have killed might actually make things worse when the scavengers are waiting for the PCs to finally kill stuff. And the scavengers, like the Sturges or giant vultures or whatever, are circling overhead, which might lead enemies of the PCs to go, oh, those are scavengers circling overhead. There they are. Mythos brings up the fact that they have to pretend the person is alive. That's a thing too, so the prisoners are actually killed, but they pretend that they're alive. They have them propped up somewhere, and then they turn on them, and Surprise Living Let Dice says surprise mimics equals devious GM fun. Yeah, you can only play that a couple of times before your PC start poking everything with a 10-foot pole. You got to be careful of that, because after a while you don't want to encourage analysis paralysis. But it is fun to surprise them a little bit. Foolish Kiwi says, actually, that reminded me, it's relevant, but I actually did have a bleeding mimic one recently. It was full of melted treasure and sprayed molten gold. rest in peace, Tokvi the greedy dwarf. Oh, wow. So how the hell did that get in there? Melted treasure and sprayed molten gold. I wonder what the hell happened there. That's a story in and of itself. Your Pocket GM says normally magic circle spells typically require a part of a creature it's designed to ward against, like magic biometrics. Or yeah, absolutely. Why the hell not? And why not? I would absolutely, if a player character was invested in my world, in my setting, and was like, hey, I've got the blood of, I don't know, a giant or something like that. Could I change the spell that holds against undead to instead have it keep away giants? I'd be like, yeah, why not? I mean, or I would allow them to learn a different spell using giants and giants' blood for that fact or something. Why the hell not? I mean, it's a great thing, right? And then it's really cool to flavor that PC and reward them for exploring your world, because this is about exploration, right? And if you want people to do it, if you want players to do the things that you enjoy, reward them for doing the thing that they just did, right? Instead of like finding a page in a book, flipping to it and telling them no. Instead go, what's the closest analogy? Yeah, sure, go for it. Mythos says, or have a good necromancer who is shunned, or but uses his skills for good, or go through a dungeon only to find a good necromancer. And yeah, that's always that is definitely a deep dive thing about people wanting to always play like the good necromancer. Like, well, my necromancer is good, he's not evil. Well, you're good. Society may not think you're good. You're going to have a hard time convincing me that you're a good guy when you've taken my dead grandmother around a dungeon because you want to use her as cannon fodder, right? That's not, I mean, a person's motivation is different than society's or the societal reaction to what you're doing, right? You can be a good vigilante in modern day society, but if you're walking around with a baseball bat wrapped in barbed wire, beating random individuals to a pulp before they've had their day in court, you're going to have a problem in a modern civilized society, right? Overall, they may go, yeah, you did a good thing, but people have rules and people have societal things like raising people's dead grandmothers and children and using them as your adventuring tools might not have a good effect, no matter how just and righteous and honorable you think you are, right? Prue says, have them learn, but put a timer on their progress. Maybe they learn the thing in time, maybe they don't. Maybe the thing works well or only on half power. I'd love that as a player. Scribbling. Yeah, the thing is that we open up a book, right? We get ourselves like a Dungeons and Dragons book, and it has like magic missile. It's got protection from something. It heals this and stuff. You could say that maybe those spells are the ones that everybody knows, but maybe your spells are something different, right? You have the special spell. It's not protection from good and evil. It's protection from giants, it's protection from dragons, it's protection from oozes. And your PC, maybe in the beginning, like Prue was saying, maybe it works, it doesn't last as long, or it works at half power, or it only protects yourself at first, and you would have to learn to make it spread out from you and things. And then your player character might become a specialist in that. Hey, my character becomes the dragon slayer, and I have my spells specifically target dragons or something. That would be cool, and what a world building and character building thing. So yeah, I agree with you, and I would let that go. Like on a spur of the moment, I'd be like, that's a great idea. Shit. Let me write that down. I'm the DM. I'm gonna write that down for myself. You know what I mean? Absolutely. Professor Dogo says it's my kindness bat. I'm just doing kind things with my barbed wire wrapped bat, right? Exactly. I mean, sure, your motivation is good, but people may not look at you as being good. And of course you're living with the fact that the majority of necromancers are probably evil. So you've got that to deal with as well. I mean, I'm not saying it's not possible. I once created the idea that a society ended up cherishing a necromancer because they've been assaulted by villainy so much that the people in a way mummified their dead so that the necromancer could raise them again so it could defend the village, their society. And so they were like arming them, the people themselves were arming them and taking care of their dead so that they could continue the fight against the evil. And of course, evil propagated evil and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, there's that's the necromancer thing. We can go down that deep dark hole. Hell, we could do that all friggin' week if you want to. Foolish Kiwi says most people who use dark powers have semi-good intentions from their own perspective. Most dictators, at least publicly, looked at it through the lens of it's either this or we all die. And that's the thing, right? It's the rebellion idea, right? The rebels overthrow the evil regime. They go, yay, we're in charge. And then all the people look at them with their arms folded like, all right, we need running water. We need medicine. Now what? And it's like, well, shit. Okay, you do what I say or else, right? Because we're the good guys, but we still need society. So you're going to have to do what I say or else society falls back into chaos again. And the cool thing is going through that, right? The good necromancer that eventually keeps rationalizing the darker things they're doing until they lose sight of the fact of why they were doing it in the first place. Yeah, Foolish Huey says it may have been wrong, of course, but that's why perspective is so crazy. Of course, yeah, right. And I mean, but that's the cool part, right? I would love to do that. Even if I've convinced myself, no, I'm going to make a. Thank you very much for the super chat, Mythos. Yeah, you are so right. There will be any moment now that when Mrs. DBJ will call me, she will be heading off to work, and I always say goodbye. I know that might rub people the wrong way, but I do have a life, and I do have a wife, and happy life, happy wife, right? So thank you so much. Mythos says, but it depends on the world you're playing in, I suppose. Well, and also, it depends on the perspective, right? And playing with perspective is a thing to play with, right? That's gaming fuel. And so playing with perspective is always a possibility. I know as role players, we're brilliant and we want to get to the bottom of an issue, but diving into the issue in the first place is always a great thing. Foolish Kiwi says, I always see alignment as a label, not a guide. If the character starts acting differently, I simply inform that character that their alignment is shifting if it becomes a regular thing. No big deal. Right. And it never was a big thing. Mitho says it was a 2-part comment, DBJ. Read the one above. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Where it says it depends on the world you're playing in. Oh, absolutely. The idea that there we go. In my opinion, character backstory and acting in character trumps alignment. I see the other side of the argument, but to me, if a player gives me a good reason why he or she will act in a certain way, I would let them. Well, it's not about letting or not letting someone do something. We, for some weird RPG reason, the equation of alignment always falls on one side than the other. If you A, aren't acting your alignment, B, you're wrong, as opposed to A, act what you're acting like, B, this is the alignment you are, right? We always do we fall on one side of the equal sign. So player characters should do what they feel their character should act like, and then that's who they are, right? Oh, Mythos said, I mean, not to punish them. Well, alignment was never meant as a punishment anyway, right? That wasn't the alignment is, hey, here's your player character. And oh, by the way, pick an alignment that best fits your character. It wasn't, here's an alignment and here's the straitjacket and you can never act outside of that, right? It's a paladin can steal and a paladin can murder and kill. It's just that good people feel guilty, evil people don't, right? A good aligned character can travel with evil people and do evil things and then say to themselves, hey, by the way, I know I'm doing this thing, it's for a good reason, but at the end of it, I'm going to turn myself in to the religious order because I have to atone for what I've done, right? It is letting players come to the conclusion of what they are and then let society judge them as well. A good person doing something good might be judged as doing something evil. The vigilante beating random people in the neighborhood with a barbed wire wrapped baseball bat is doing a good thing. They're breaking rules and people might look at them as being psychos, right? But if they're beating up drug dealers that are infecting their neighborhood, who's to say they're not good? And that they are saying, well, the law is not protecting it, right? It's all about perspective, and playing with perspective is the fun of the game. It's not sitting at the table and arguing for 35 minutes. This is what these live streams are for, right? Sorry, a foolish Kiwi says a lawful good character may make a chaotic evil decision from another character's perspective for the greater good, for example. Yeah, and everyone rationalizes their own behavior. The selfish part is everyone wants everyone else to respect and agree with their decisions. That's usually where the misunderstanding comes in. Mythos says, I misunderstood alignment. Thanks for clarifying. No. You did. No. I didn't. Again, that's just me. Dead Man Story. Sorry, Dead Man and Storyteller says, I broke my alignment. Oh, poor baby. Anyway, we've come to the hour mark. This is the Third Pillar Thursday, dealing with blood tomorrow. Tomorrow we go into Future Friday. We're gonna talk about science, the science of blood, the future, genetic engineering, eugenics, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, tomorrow, Future Friday. Put on your sci-fi hat, guys. Thank you very much. Everyone who has to go, thank you for joining into the live chat and being part of this. It is self-promotion time. So the currency of social media is interaction. So if you don't mind, please like, share, subscribe, hit the notification button. Check out us at Critical Hit Publishing and Drive Through RPG. And by the way, check out the things that we're creating with Critical Hit Publishing. And if you're feeling a little randy, hit the super chat if you wish, just like Mythos is very kind, and donate to the cause, leave a tip. Guys, everyone have a great day. I'll see you later. See you tomorrow. Bye.